What's up, hi guys? And today we got three UFC fighters who had the biggest downfalls in the last few years. We were talking very positively and very highly about these guys a few years ago, but nowadays these guys are in the trash. People are saying that they should retire. Maybe they just changed up their fighting style. Maybe they just lost passion for the sport, or they just washed. So let's waste no time. Let's get into this. So the first guy that we're gonna talk about is Sergei Pavlovich. Now, Sergei Pavlovich, back in the day, was this, Russian, polar bear, fucking KOing every fat heavyweight, running through Derek Lewis and running through Taito Iwasa, KOing Curtis Blades. Who does that to Curtis Blades? And then, even before he KO'd Shamil Ghaziev's father, I think he was called like Shamil Abdurakhimov, that NPC heavyweight. And this guy, before the Tom Aspinall fight, had basically the guy was like, overmaxing. He was KOing every guy in front of him. Again, he was just, cold-blooded fucking Russian monster. But like now, basically in the Tom Aspinall fight, he lost 80% of his aura just by that, because it's not like, he got KO'd. Like, again, going into the fight, a lot of people are picking Pavlovich, but most of the people that were picking Tom Aspinall, they were picking Tom by submission, There were a few people that were picking Tom by KO, I guess, because, he was coming off a KO against Marcin Tybura, and, of course, we knew that Tom was fast and he can crack, but again, we didn't know that he can KO, these, big monsters like Sergei Pavlovich and Curtis Blades. And people were saying going into the fight that Tom Aspinall, the first thing he should do is to shoot a takedown on Sergei, because, Sergei is going to KO him bad. And I mean, of course, we know how it turned out. Tom Aspinall, of course, KO'd him. And then after that, he kept some of his aura, right? Like, going into the fight with Alexander Volkov, I was picking him. Few guys were picking him. Like, it wasn't, I think he was the favorite going into the fight, and then gets pieced up by Volkov. His face looked like fucking mincemeat after the fight, and he was, salty. He was like, pushing Volkov after the fight, and after that, like, the guy just basically lost all of his aura. Like, Sergei, this Russian monster. It was over. And it just became even worse because the guy changed up his fighting style, and he took a bit of layoff, and then he had a fight with Jairzinho Rosenstrike, and against Rosenstrike, the guy just fucking out wrestled him, and basically had a boring, stinky fight. Like, I remember it was such a boring fight, and it wasn't like. Because back in the day, again, Sergei Pavlovich was like, throwing big bombs and, KOing everyone. And he was like what Paulo Costa fans think Paulo Costa is, right? Because Paulo Costa fans think, Paulo Costa, fucking, big bombs and KOs everyone. That was Sergei Pavlovich when he was actually Sergei Pavlovich. Nowadays, he's Sergei Pavlovich, as MMA Guru said, and that's so true. And I know there's gonna be some guy in the comments saying, what the fuck, bro? What do you mean he's gay? You would never even step in the octagon, fucking pussy. Like, I understand, but bro, I can't criticize someone for being boring. That used to be, an exciting fighter. Like, again, it's not like Sergei Pavlovich is like going out there to fight Francis Ngannou. He's thinking it up, he's wrestling. No, he's going out there to fight Jairzinho Rosenstrike and Valdo Cortes Acosta. These guys, I know Valdo just KO'd Ante Delija, but bro, like, these guys, I know it's heavyweight, but again, like, as I just said, you're going up against Jairzinho Rosenstrike, who's not like who's not known for his big KO power. Like, Jairzinho Rosenstrike is like a high output, kickboxer, floating out to the outside, and the solution for him to gain his aura back and to rise up again is to get some KOs, bro. Get some KOs, because even though, like, if you just look at the stats, the guy's on a 2-fight winning streak. He's number 3 in the world, but he needs to get some KOs to get his hype back. You have to turn back into the monster that you were, the fucking Russian cold-blooded monster. So that's for Sergei Pavlovich. Next guy that we're gonna talk about is none other than Colby Chaos Covington. Now, Colby, I mean, I know Colby has a lot of haters, and I just put your bias aside and your hatred for Colby, put that aside and just admit that in his prime, this guy was one of the best fighters in the world. Like, Colby doesn't care about the sport anymore. Like, you can just see the guy's playing poker, he's streaming. He doesn't care about the guy. The guy fights once a year. He's always ring rusted. Back in the day, this guy was a monster, bro. Like, honestly, and you guys say I'm glazing Colby, but look at the fights. Like, I know when you look at only his resume, like, it's not that good, because most of the guys that he's beaten are all like 35 plus and out of their prime. But he did what he needed to do. Out of prime, Jorge Masvidal, 50-44 him, drowned him, complete domination. Tyron Woodley, out of his prime, 38, complete domination, and then it was a TKO at the end. And then people are saying that he gets praised for losing to Usman twice, but that's just such a dumb statement, because if you look at the fights, it's not like he gets praised for losing to Usman. Like, those were like very, very close fights, especially like he was winning the first fight, and it was kind of rigged, right? Like, yeah, Usman broke his jaw, Usman broke Colby's jaw, broke his face, bro. But after Usman broke Colby's jaw, Colby went out there and fucking gritted down and won the 4th round against Usman, right? Colby was a real warrior back in the day. And then in the 5th round, of course, he got knocked down twice, and I understand that, and of course I give praise to Usman for finishing Colby, but he was hitting Colby with back of the head shots. In the second fight, I mean, it was, in my opinion, it was a clear win for Usman, but Colby definitely won 2 rounds. So you can make the argument that he was a draw, against RDA. It was a close fight, competitive fight, but he beat RDA, and people are saying, RDA was, 35. He was washed, bro. RDA at 35 at welterweight wasn't washed at all. I think he was coming off a win over Robbie Lawler. Like, again, RDA was in his prime, and Colby beat the prime RDA. But now Colby doesn't care about the sport, as I said. He doesn't give a fuck. And if you look at like his training camps, the guy switches coaches every single fight, because he was at ATT for a while, and then he switched to what's it called, MMA Masters maybe, in Miami, and where Sam Gorimbo trained, and then for a few fights he was there, and I think he made some good improvements there, and for some reason he left them and started training with fucking Chael Sonnen, and like, I don't even know his coaches. Like, I know his striking coach is like some black guy, but who is this guy sparring with? Who is this guy's training partner? Because I know when he's streaming, he has some like, personal, weightlifting trainer that he's like, wrestling with. But bro, you're wrestling with the fucking gym coach. Like, come on, bro. If Colby gets another win, he's gonna get some more back. He's gonna get some more, respect, the guy thing. But now he's down there. Like, if you look at it, a few years ago, Colby Covington's interviews were like huge. Like, they were making numbers, like, because people were emotionally invested in those, right? Because Colby, he was on top of the division. He was number 1, number 2, and people cared about him. People cared what he said, and of course people clowned on him and hated on him, but at least he was relevant, right? I don't even know if he's gonna fight. Probably not. It's insane. Colby took another year off for no reason. He was in the gym training and he could have easily got a fight. Even when he was like 35 and 36, I think when he fought Leon, he was physically in his prime. But in the Buckley fight, he started declining. It was a declined version of Colby, but it wasn't, like a washed Colby. It was not a fucking, worse version of him. No. Now, if he fights again next year, that's gonna be the worst version of Colby we've ever seen. Like the oldest, ring rusted, slow as fuck. Like that's the Colby that we're gonna see in his next fight. So yeah, let's just move on to the next guy. The last one we got, Michael Chandler, one of my favorite fighters in the UFC actually, and one of the most entertaining guys in the UFC. Not now, but used to be it, because if you look at his past two performances against Paddy Pimblett and Charles Oliveira in the rematch, the guy looked horrible. Because I remember watching the UFC 309 countdown episodes and embedded episodes, and Chandler and his coach were saying that this time Chandler's gonna be, more technical and more patient this time, patient Chandler. And we know how it turns out. Chandler did nothing in the first 4 rounds and then somehow hurt Charles in the last round. And then, of course, he had the dirty move, landing back of the headshots. The first 4 rounds, he got dominated because I remember he was running away from Charles. Charles put him on his back foot, taking him down effortlessly. It was just pure domination from Charles. And the Paddy Pimblett fight was even more embarrassing because first round, he won the first round by control time. I think he had 2 minutes of control time. Second round, he lands a clean overhand, and Paddy eats it and starts emoting, basically saying that's all you got. So after that, when you got the fucking big brawler Chandler who's like this, everyone's saying, Chandler, the only way you lose Chandler if because Chandler has this punches chance and he has some great power. When that guy is hitting you with his best shots and nothing happens, you already know he's cooked. And he was cooked. He got ground and pounded by Paddy Pimblett into orbit, and he looked like mincemeat after the fight. But Chandler, back in the day, was a fucking marauder.
Just like a marauder.
He was crazy.
He was a marauder.
Because, bro, Chandler doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion. He doesn't get enough credit for his wins over Dan Hooker and even Tony Ferguson. I'm not saying that's a great win or whatever, because I know Tony was old and he got dropped by Tony, which is insane. But Chandler, his chin is kind of weird because he can take shots from Dustin and Justin and even Charles, but he can't take shots from Tony. I mean, he can, but he got dropped by Tony, so it's pretty weird. But Bobby Green also got dropped by Tony Ferguson. But Chandler, his win over Dan Hooker is a very, very underrated win. No one has KO'd Dan Hooker with one punch, put him down, finish him. No, it was Arnold Allen who did it. It was a standing TKO, and it was 145, where Dan Hooker had no food in his brain. He was dehydrated as fuck. So Chandler did it at 155, and it was a clean KO. And I know Grant Dawson and his fucking bum ass was trashing Chandler for, he was saying, Chandler, why is this guy in the top 15 fucking sucks, and he only beat pre-tattoo Dan Hooker and Tony Ferguson was 40 years old. Yeah? What the fuck are you, Dan Hooker, pre-tattoo Dan Hooker, how, we beat pre-tattoo Dan Hooker fucking sucks. And Dan Hooker was coming off a Dustin Poirier fight, which was a fight of the year potentially, and it was a very, very competitive fight. Before that, he beat Paul Felder. Dan Hooker was in his prime. Dan Hooker was number 6 at the time in the rankings, and again, Dan Hooker has a amazing chin, almost a granite chin, if you can say, because again, Dan Hooker's he's a crazy guy, and when you're taking head kicks from Jalen Turner, you can say that he had literally fractured his skull and he didn't go down. but Chandler was able to put him down. So I think it's an underrated win for Chandler. And also, his fights that he lost against Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, in every of those fights, he had a lot of success. And there was this narrative about Chandler that if he had good fight IQ, he would run the entire lightweight division. And that, I mean, I gotta say that back in the day, in that era, when you had 4 guys fighting each other all the time, Chandler, Charles, Justin Gaethje, and Charles Oliveira. In that era, 2021, 2022, 2020, in that era, if Chandler had good fight IQ, would have probably won the division. But the guy and his IQ levels are not that big. So even though, again, drop Charles Oliveira. If he lets him up, drops him again, the fight's over. He jumped on fucking Charles after dropping him, jumped into Oliveira's guard and let him recover, and then Charles KO'd him. Against Justin Gaethje, it wasn't really like a fight IQ thing. Yeah, I mean, he was trying to put up like a clip farming fight, and he was like throwing like flying knees into Justin Gaethje's forearms, like pretty weird techniques. I mean, I'm saying that the flying knee into the armpits of Justin Gaethje, but he won the first round, and it was a good fight. I don't think it was a fight IQ thing. I think Chandler basically just threw big. Chandler always throws big bombs, and this narrative that I was talking about earlier was saying that like Chandler has the tools. It's just that he's not smart enough. Chandler doesn't have the tools. Chandler is just he is a brawler. He's a wild man, but it works for him. That's the thing. Like Chandler doesn't have this big technique. Like when you're watching his fights, he's just spamming right hands all the time. He's spamming right hands, and they are very, very telegraphed. But somehow they work. In Dustin Poirier fight, he was spamming right hands, and it worked for him. I know he got dropped one time in the last 15 seconds of the first round, but he was winning the majority of the fight. If he doesn't make the silly mistake of fucking clip farming with Dustin Poirier, fucking laying on his back and doing a pistol squat with him, gassing himself out and then getting choked out. If he doesn't do that, he wins the fight. I know it's easy to say, but like, it's just what it is. Like, it's just true. Like, these are just facts. If he doesn't do these things that are not necessarily at all, he wins the fights. It's just that he always wants to be this, company man and do fucking everything and do the fucking clip farming that's not necessary. And he does those things, or just makes mistakes, like against Charles Oliveira in the first fight, drops him, and instead of letting him up, he gets into Oliveira's guard. And Oliveira recovered, and you know what happened? Tony Ferguson fight. I mean, yeah, it was 40-year-old Tony Ferguson, and Tony wasn't like a 6-fight losing, a 5-fight losing streak at the time. But Tony, like, no one has KO'd him out cold. He got like a standing TKO with Justin Gaethje when he was like, it was like a beat down, but he didn't go out cold. Like, he was still conscious, not 100% conscious, but because Justin Gaethje put a beating on him. But Chandler was the only one that basically put out Tony Ferguson out cold. And I know it was a head kick, but you gotta give credit for Chandler for that. Like, and it's not like he KO'd the bomb. And again, as I just said, Tony Ferguson has never been KO'd out cold. So I'm not saying that's like a huge win that you should like, that is gonna blow the roof off and Chandler beat Tony Ferguson. What the fuck, bro? It's one of the greatest wins ever. No, of course not. But it's something that you can mention, and it kind of has a point, right? Tony Ferguson never been KO'd. Chandler was the only one to do it. So the downfall basically for Chandler is that back in the day, he was able to be very, very, very competitive with these top 5 guys like Gaethje, Dustin, Charles, Dan Hooker, and all these guys, and he had a lot of success with them. Now he gets dominated by the number 12 ranked Paddy Pimblett. I know the ranking doesn't show his skill levels. Like after Paddy Pimblett beat Chandler, like everyone knew that Paddy's elite. But come on, like I mean personally, I was picking Chandler because I thought that Paddy and his fluke submission over Bobby Green just didn't show me that. Yeah, he beat Bobby Green. How was gonna beat Michael Chandler? And he beat Tony Ferguson, who was 40 years old, and went to decision with him. So that's, now he's gonna be Michael Chandler. I thought that Chandler is gonna be able to KO Paddy, but Paddy showed the levels, and he showed some improvements and beat the fuck out of Chandler. But I still think that Chandler's underrated, not now, but overall, like his career. And every time there's a video of Chandler on TikTok and Instagram, go in the comments, and the first comment you'll see is that 2-5 with the UFC. By the way, his record is 2-5 with the UFC. That's the first comment that you're gonna see. Or that Chandler's a bum. Chandler sucks and was never that good. Chandler was never that good. Fucking bum. Loses to everyone, and his wins are overrated. That's I mean, a lot of people think that, unfortunately, but like that's just being dumb. I'm sorry, bro. That just, if you look at Chandler's fights, especially in the earlier part of his UFC career, and it's not like when he was in those fights with these elite guys, he was like young and fucking 30-year-old. No, he was like in his mid-30s. He was 36 in the Dustin Poirier fight, and he still performed very, 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 very well. Yeah, he was winning the fight. I'm sorry. Not Dustin, but he was losing the fight. But bro, Dustin dropped him in the first round, and imagine if there was 10 more seconds. Yeah, bro, there are so many fights that you can say that. Imagine if fucking Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw in the first fight they had 10 more seconds. Yeah. Cody Garbrandt would have KO'd DJ Dillashaw. Yeah, same thing. And what happened? TJ KO'd Cody Garbrandt. So same thing with this. Same thing with Chandler. Dustin would have KO'd him if he has 10 more seconds, bro. Yeah. But I mean, it's a 5-minute round. I'm sorry, bro. That's not Joe Rogan rules where no time limit and fucking basketball court and. Like, no. But guys, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then please drop a like and subscribe to my channel. If you want to give me any feedback or recommendations, or any thoughts on these fighters that I just talked about, feel free to drop a comment below, and I appreciate any feedback, any critiques. I can take them well. So guys, thank you for watching. Goodbye.